Hello everyone and welcome to our second Cambridge University Press ELT webinar today. I'm very pleased to welcome as our presenter this afternoon Anne Robinson. Anne has taught students from the ages of 4 all the way up to 84 and has done so for many years. She's an active consultant and teacher trainer for a number of organisations and has written and delivered seminars as well as producing web material for Cambridge English. As co-author of three books on preparation for the Cambridge English Young Learners tests, she's had the pleasure of incorporating new inspiration into the third editions of Fun for Starters, Fun for Movers and Fun for Flyers. So, over to you, Anne.
Good afternoon from here in Spain, rainy Spain, as Jono was saying. And good morning and good evening and good middle of the night to you, wherever you are. Welcome to this webinar, where I'm going to be looking at different ways of using coursebook material to prepare for the Cambridge English Movers and Flyers, Cambridge English Movers and Flyers tests. Okay, so can everybody hear me, I hope? Right, let's start. Okay, well, first of all, the question you have to ask is my coursebook at the right level for movers or for flyers? Does it match the level tested in these tests? That's A1 and A2 on the Common European Framework. Well, you can check this by comparing the topics and grammar in your coursebooks with the grammar and structure lists and with the vocabulary lists in the Cambridge English Young Learners Handbook for Teachers, which is available on the Cambridge English website. Both the Movers and Flyers tests have 3 papers: listening, reading and writing, and speaking. The tasks in these papers test different lexis, grammar, and functional language, as well as testing different listening, reading, and speaking skills. There's very little writing involved, but what candidates do write must be correctly spelt, except for 1 or 2 exceptions. The activities we're going to look at in this webinar will cover the skills and the language needed for many of the tasks from the 3 papers. Okay, so in this webinar, I'm going to use to explain or demonstrate the different activities material from the pupils book Kids Box 4 or the pupils book from Kids Box 6. These books are at the right level for students who would be in a position to take the Cambridge English Movers or Cambridge English Flyers tests. Now, many of the different parts of the Movers and Flyers tests are picture-based. Other parts have pictures to accompany the texts or the task. Let's start by looking at how we can use scene pictures from our coursebook. So we're going to look at different ways we can use this picture, which is from Kids Box 4, for various activities to prepare from different parts of the Cambridge English Movers test. Right, so in part 1 of the Movers listening test, candidates have to draw lines between 5 of the names outside the picture and 5 people in the picture. 1 name is used in the example. So, good training for students when they're doing this task or when they're going to do this task is to look at the names outside the picture and think, which are boys' names? Which are girls' names? Which names that you can see here can be used for both a girl and a boy. Okay, so in this case, boys' names would be Paul and Jack. Grace, Daisy and Vicky would be girls' names, but both Alex and Kim might be for a girl or a boy. Now, this is a very useful thing to know and for us to train our students to notice before they do this task, because it will help them choose or eliminate names from the ones that they're given. So let's do a practice listening part 1, just a short part of it. Look at this picture of our school party. Can you see Vicky? She's the girl who's playing the piano. She's very clever. She reads music very well. Which name did you hear? Can you type it in the chat box? That's right. We were talking about Vicky. And which girl is Vicky in the picture? What's she doing? That's right. She's the girl who's playing the piano and she's reading music. Now, listen to what I'm going to tell you about another person in the picture. Paul can't sing, but he loves helping his big brother. He's sitting next to his brother in this picture. Can you see his blue and white t-shirt? Which name did you hear this time? Can you type it in the chat box? Yes, it was Paul, wasn't it? And what's Paul doing? Where is he? That's right, he's sitting next to his older brother. He's helping him. Very good, he's next to the keyboard player. Okay, so how many pieces of information did you hear about Vicky and about Paul? Okay, quite a bit of debate here. 2, 3, 4. Depends how many, how finally we break it down, really. But students will always hear at least 2 pieces of information about each person. Okay, so they'll very often hear what they're doing, where they are, what they're wearing. Okay, so again, if we tell students that they should hear 2 pieces of information, then if they miss one of them or they don't understand one of them, there will always be another piece of information to help them. Okay, so we can do this activity quite easily in the class with a picture from our course book by giving students maybe the names on cards or getting them to write them down and then to match the people to the people in the picture. Students can also prepare their own task. So we could give the students 7 names like this, and they decide which 5 names are matched with which 5 people in the picture, and then in pairs they can tell each other who is Paul, who is Vicky, etc. Okay, so this would practice, as I said, part 1 of the movers and also for flyers 2, the listening test, where students have to match names to people in the picture. Now let's look at another task which appears on the movers test. Now in part 2 of the movers reading and writing test, candidates have to say if sentences about a picture are correct or not. Are they yes or no? They write yes after correct sentences and no if the information is the sentence is not correct. We can practice this using a picture like this one in several ways. First, very simply, we can give students sentences of the kind that they would get in the movers test and ask them to say, is this a yes or a no sentence? So the woman with a flower in her hair is wearing a green skirt. This is a yes sentence. What about this sentence? We can see two men with beards. And this is a no sentence because how many men in the picture can we see with beards? Yeah, there's only one, Mr. Turner, at the back of the picture. Okay, again, you can get your students to write sentences about a picture in their course book. So say something more. You can challenge your students to say or to write as many sentences as possible about the picture. This could be a competition to see which team thinks of the most sentences. Unfortunately, we haven't got time for a competition here today, but believe me, students love doing that activity. Okay, very important to get students, to raise students' awareness of the kinds of words that tend to be wrong in a no sentence is to get them to say why a sentence is a no sentence. So, why is this sentence a no sentence? Which word in the sentence makes it a no sentence? Yes, the word outside makes the sentence a no sentence because it should be inside school. What about this sentence? Which word makes it a no sentence? That's right. Okay. All of the seats are blue is not correct because we can see at least, well, we can see two red seats under the guitar player and the piano player. So the word all in this sentence makes it a no sentence. Okay, so this is important training for our students. Okay, to practice or revise a particular structure, which would be useful for movers in this case, we could also give students sentences about the picture containing the same structure. For example, very typically at movers, we get the word only. Only one person is wearing glasses. Only one person is playing the guitar. We've got a no and a yes sentence here. So we can give students sentences with the same structure, and then we could ask them to write more sentences, again with only. What about the two sentences at the bottom? what structure do they share? What are we practicing here? Yes, lots of superlatives coming in here. Okay, so both of the sentences have superlative adjectives, and again, this is very often in the sentences that will appear with a picture in reading and writing part 2. Okay. So again, we could get students to write or say more sentences with superlatives or with comparatives. Now I'm going to show you some words. What kind of words are these words? Yes, they're quantifiers. They tell us how many things or people share a characteristic, wearing the same clothes or doing the same activity. And here we have some examples. Are they yes or no sentences? Yes, they're both yes sentences. So now I'm going to give you the start of a sentence about this picture, and I'd like you to type a yes sentence into the chat box. Okay, so can you complete this sentence about the picture? So the first 2 words of the sentence are most of. Most of. Can you give me a sentence about this picture with most of? Yeah, some great sentences there. And it's obvious that the happy mood in this picture is definitely carried across. It's definitely transmitted because, as you say, most of the people are having a good time. Most of the people are happy. Most of the people are singing. Most of the people are enjoying and listening to the music. So it's a very positive picture, like there are in many young learners' course books, and it's a shame not to take advantage of them and use them for more activities. Right, now I'm going to look at another structure. This structure is very often used in a flyers test, especially in reading and writing part 2. If someone has, okay, and they continue usually with the present perfect. Okay, so for example, about this picture, someone has turned on the stage lights. Okay, I'm going to give you another challenge. Can I ask you to write in the chat box, which some of you are already doing? Can you write me a sentence using someone has plus the present perfect? Someone has eaten my porridge. Okay. So sentences like the one from Eleni: someone has turned his microphone on. Someone has put the piano on the stage. These kind of sentences are usually talking about events, the actions that have happened before the moment that this photograph was taken, or this picture was frozen in time, if you like. So it's things that have happened before the event rather than things which are happening in the picture. Okay. But they are very typically on the flyers too. Okay, so very useful to get them to think about the concept and to think about how they can use this structure, because it's a very useful structure to use. Okay. Can you guess my sentence? Okay, so I've got a sentence with someone has, and then I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 words following that sentence start. Can anybody guess my sentence? Okay, I've just put in the next word, which is prepared. Someone has prepared. Right, very, very nearly. Okay, my sentence was, and I'm going to type it in the chat box, someone has prepared this room for the concert. Okay, but lots of very good suggestions there. Okay, so again, getting students to think about what words can go in the sentence structure, but with a game element. Okay, this guessing element to get them to enjoy this activity. Okay, and the last activity based on this picture. Okay, so for this time, we're going to practice for part 1 of the Moore's reading and writing test. I'm going to give you some sentences for things that you can see in the picture. And I want you to read the sentence and tell me what it's about. That's right, it's a beard, and we can see a beard here in the picture on Mr. Turner's chin, on his face at the back of the picture. What about this next sentence? This person works in a school with children. That's right, we're talking about a teacher, talking about us. Okay. And finally, these are white and they're in your mouth. Yeah, they're your teeth, okay, that you use to eat your food. Popcorn. Okay, no, it's not popcorn, they're teeth. Okay, so again, we can use a picture like this to work on definitions. We can continue this with students choosing things in the picture and writing sentences, definitions like this one. Okay. So we've been looking at different ways of using one scene picture. Now I'm going to move on to look at some other pictures, and in this case we're working with two or several pictures. So these pictures again come from Kids Box 4, and they show a story about a school trip. But we can use them as well to practice and prepare for different parts of the movers test. Okay, so which one is different and why? Okay, so I'm highlighting here 4 of the pictures, A, B, C, and F. Can you tell me which picture is different and why is it different? Okay, and the point here is that there's no right answer as long as students can justify with a good reason why they think a particular picture is different. So for example, we could say here, B is different because there are 4 people in pictures A, C, and F, whereas in B, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people. Or we could say B is different because I can see a grown up in picture B. Okay, but there's no right answer or no wrong answer, should we say, as long as we can justify why we're saying this one is different. What about these pictures? Which one is different and why? Pictures A, D, E, and F. Okay, again, there's no wrong or right answer as long as you can justify yourself. But for example, we could say F is different because they are outside the museum. In A, D, and E, they're inside the museum. And please note that this task is in the movers speaking test, but it is not in the flyers speaking test. Okay. Let's look now at a task that is in both the movers and the flyers speaking tests. Can you find 5 differences between pictures C and F? Yeah, so we have lots of you coming up with bags or rucksacks and no rucksacks, all the children doing the same thing, walking, whereas in picture C they're not. Walking versus standing. Okay, the boy in the red sweater is taking a picture rather than walking. Margaret, there is there's a sign on the wall. Okay, we can't see the name of the museum in picture C. Okay, so again, you can have a variety of answers, a variety of suggestions, and the idea is to make it a competition, to make it give it an element of fun. Okay, but these pictures are in the in this pupil's book, in this case, as a picture story, but we can use them to practice the tasks in the flyers and movers speaking tests. Okay, another thing that I like to do a lot with pictures is to give students useful expressions or questions or speech and ask them to match them to pictures. Okay, so I'm going to show you 3 speech bubbles, and I'd like you to say where you could put the bubbles, in which picture could you put the bubbles. So in which picture might you hear, "Smile, please"? In which picture might you hear, "Come on, let's go inside"? And what about, "Well done, that poster looks great"? Okay, so "smile please" is something we say when we're taking a photo, so it would be probably go with picture C. The boy in the red sweater there with a camera would be saying it. "Come on, let's go inside" would logically go with picture F because the children are outside and the guy in the red t-shirt is probably the person who would be saying this. And the last one, interestingly, could actually go with A, okay, where the children are making posters, or it could go with H, where we have a poster of sea life, which maybe the children made after their visit to the museum. Okay, and as Alice just put in the chat box, when we ran through this, we realised that this was a potential double match when we were running through this webinar yesterday. Okay, but that's the good thing about it. Okay, as I say, there's no right or wrong answer as long as you can justify why you think it's that. Okay, so that was using, let's go back to that. There we were using a set of pictures which appeared in the book for a picture story, okay? But we can also use all of the pictures throughout the course book, okay? So you could give students speech bubbles like this, which they're all examples of everyday expressions and exclamations that appear on the movers and flyers vocabulary lists. And you could ask them to find a picture in the course book where they think they could add that speech bubble. Okay, so as I say, this will be getting them to use the whole course book and looking at the pictures in the whole course book. These kind of expressions are really important for part 3 of the reading and writing test at both movers and flyers, and they're also really useful if students can use them when they're doing the telling of the story for the picture story in the speaking test. So, and also I think they're very, very useful in general for real life, okay? That's real life English that they're likely to use if they're speaking to someone or if they're saying goodbye to somebody or asking for information or whatever, okay? So very, very useful expressions. A similar activity I do is with words, lexis from a topic, okay? So I'd get them to count how many of these things they can find, okay? So flyers, words for clothes, belts, gloves, necklaces, pockets, sunglasses, umbrellas, uniforms. Okay, so I give them the words and ask them, how many umbrellas are there in your pupil's book, in the pictures? How many pockets? Can you count the pockets? This could be the whole book, or it could be, can you count how many pockets are there in Unit 5? Get them to look at the picture and tell you the answer. Okay, so this is activating, practicing the vocabulary, the lexis. And also, I think for your visual students, it's very important as well. So to help them to make the connection between the word and the image. Okay, so I've finished looking at activities to use with the pictures in the book. Now I'm going to move on to using texts from the book. So this text, or these texts, because there are 3 of them here, are from Kids Box, Pupils Book 6. This would be more suitable for our flyers candidates. And the text I'm going to look at first is this one, which is about emails. Okay, so this kind of factual text is very often in our course books. So what I have done with this text is here I've highlighted 5 words that I plan to remove from the text. What parts of speech are these words, the red words? What's when? Okay, in this example, it's a conjunction, okay? It can be a question word and it can be an adverb, okay? What about our? We can write emails or text on our phones. What kind of word is our? Yeah, it's a possessive adjective in this case. With than, it's a preposition. Because is a conjunction. And the is a determiner. Okay, so I've chosen these 5 words from this text. Okay, and now what I do is I would take out those words and I'd give 3 alternatives for each gap in the text. Okay, and my alternatives are all the same kind of speech, sorry, the same kind of part of speech, except for number 2, where I would give my students us, our, and we. Okay, all words connected with the first person plural. Yeah, we, us, our. Okay, and these would be the kind of words that would typically be taken out and tested from a text like this. Now, at the bottom you can see I've counted the words in this text, and there are 58. So this text is a little shorter than the text that they would find in part 6, which would tend to be around 90 words. Okay, but it's very good practice for the kind of words that are taken out in part 6 and the typical distractors which are used for the options. Okay, so that would be a factual text. Now let's look at a story. Okay, so again, this is taken from Kids Box 6. And in this case, students have to fit the words from the word box at the top into the text. In this case, I would say these kind of words are not usually the words which are taken out of a part 6 or part 7 text. Okay, so these are really testing lexis, and part 6 certainly tests grammar. Part 7 in Flyers, it's true, does test some lexical words, but most of them are grammatical. Okay, so we've got this story. Okay, so again, I'm going to reuse this text in order to practice part of the Flyers test. So this time, to create my text that I want to use, I've put in the words from the task. So we've got all the lexical words, the text is complete, and I'm giving my students 6 sentences to complete about the text. Now, let's look at the sentences that I've prepared for this text, because they illustrate the kind of things which are usually tested in part 5 of the Movers and Flyers reading and writing tests. So, sentence 1. Tomorrow is the day when Helen and Robert are going to see the film. Notice where the word tomorrow comes here. In the text, it comes at the end of the first sentence, and the information that we have in 1 is actually contained in the first 2 sentences of the text. Helen and Robert are going to the cinema tomorrow. They're going to see a film called My Family and Other Animals. So tomorrow is the day when Helen and Robert are going to see the film. So the time reference very often moves from the start to the end of the sentences when we have this paraphrasing. What about sentence 3? The boy's home is on an island. In the text, we have this. In the film, the boy lives on an island. So we have paraphrasing of live and home. Sentence 4. The answer is Gerald Durrell. Which other names might students write in that sentence? Can you type suggestions into the chat box? Which names might students type into sentence 4? Yes, so we've got 3 other names in the story. We've got Achilles, who's the parrot. Who's the tortoise? I'm sorry about that. And we've got Helen and Robert, who are the people who are going to the cinema. So again, one of the things which is very often tested is, who are we talking about? Who is very often the personal pronoun pronoun, who does it refer to? Okay, so being able to paraphrase and to understand the order and time of events, and also who is doing an action or has done something, is very important, and this is tested in part 5 of the movers and flyers task. Okay, so getting students to complete sentences or getting them to tell us in other words about a story is very useful preparation for this. Okay, I'm going to do one last activity using the texts in the book. So let's imagine, and we've got quite a few people here from Italy, I believe, you're going to read a text about Italian food. What I'd like you to do is in the chat box, I'm going to ask you to type 5 words you think you'll find in a text about Italian food. Okay, so we've got lots of pizzas, pasta, we've got olives, lasagna, we've got delicious, wine, restaurants, okay. What about verbs? What verbs do you think you might find in a text about Italian food? That's right, okay. So here are some of my suggestions, okay? And they fit in, I think, very closely to what you suggested. Okay, I'm now going to ask you to type in 5 words you don't think you would find in a text about Italian food. So 5 words you won't find in this text. Poison. Okay, and again, here are some suggestions from me. And finally, before we read this text, 5 grammatical words you think you'll find in this text. Okay, so not lexical words, but grammatical words. Okay, so we've got and from Brian, of from Marianne, because, when, who, gently, that's an interesting one. Okay, and again, here are some suggestions from me. Okay, let's look at the text then and see if our guesses were right. Okay, so were your guesses right? I think we were pretty close. We had pizzas, we had pasta, we had sauces. I think we had spaghetti and probably macaroni. Okay. So again, getting students to think about prediction, using prediction, and then to check. We're getting to think about lexical, lexis, about grammar, and then to compare. Okay, so getting them to use their own knowledge and to predict what the content might be. Okay, so my time for talking and sharing activities has finished, but I haven't finished talking because I'll be answering your questions. So today we've looked at ways to use a big scene picture, to use 2 or several pictures, and using pictures throughout the book. And finally, we've looked at a few ideas for using the texts. I hope it's been useful, and thank you very much for coming and listening, and I hope that you'll be inspired to use some of the activities in your classes. So now, Alistair, I'm ready to take questions.
Excellent. Thank you very much. That's really interesting. And we've got some questions already. Starting off with a couple about the requirements for the exams, if that's okay for the test. So, from Elena Anfimova, do we expect flyers to know the perfect tense form?
Yes, it is on the structures list for flyers. Perhaps more than actually producing it, I think candidates would be expected to understand it. So, I mean, if they can use it, for example, in a picture story, that would be absolutely fantastic. But that would be, probably beyond what we would expect. But they would probably hear it very often in part 1 of the listening, when you've got the picture with the names and they've got people who are doing things, and there may well be a question, there may well be information. Alex is the boy who's fallen over, for example, or Vicky is the girl who's dropped her glasses. And there would be the understanding that that something had happened, and therefore you could see something in the picture as a result. And as I said in part 2 of the reading and writing, with the sentences about the picture, again they might read sentences with the present perfect. But as I say, we wouldn't be asking them to produce sentences. I think with the present perfect.
Okay, thanks.
Yes,
question now from Vera Router, who asks whether 12 years old is still the age limit for taking movers and flyers.
Okay, right. Well, there isn't actually an age limit. I get here in Spain at my centre, we get candidates who may be 13. Very often, for example, they might be in a class, in a group of students where maybe some of the students are 12 because they haven't had their birthday yet, when in June, for example, if they're taking the test, alongside students who may well be 13. There's no age limit. However, I think you know your students. You know how mature they are, whether they would, for example, in my experience, for somebody who's 12 to do starters, they would probably feel that the test was rather babyish for them, because precisely it's directed at a younger age group, and the pictures and the tasks and the context tend to be more suitable for younger students, say 8, 9, 10, 11. But there isn't a cut-off point. They can, take the test, but we would always, I would always suggest to my supplier schools that they would that they know their students, and they know whether the student is up to doing the test because of the level, but also how old are they and how mature they are, because it's an age where it varies tremendously. It really does.
Okay, thanks. A question now from Yun Okbuyan, who asks whether there are activity suggestions similar to the ones you've given us in the teachers' books for Kids Box.
I think there are lots of suggestions in kids' books for further activities and games and extensions. because it's a very complete teacher's book. So I'm sure they would find suggestions, and there are actually actual tasks to practice the different parts of the movers and the flyers tests at the end of every unit or every 2 units. There does tend to be the material. I'm sure that they would find lots of activities for using them.
Okay, thanks. Question now from Caroline van Brandenburg. Says, we work with Kidsbox and aim to finish Kidsbox 4 this year. A lot of the exercises are similar to the ones that you've gone through. If we just follow the Kidsbox structure along with the mover stories, do you think we'll be well prepared for the exams?
Okay, I think Kidsbox 4 you said, yes?
Yeah.
Alistair? Yeah. Yes, I think Kidsbox 4 does cover quite closely the syllabus, if you like, the word list and the grammar structures and the functions that appear on the movers test. However, I would always, double check. There may be 1 or 2 words which are not in the course book, or which maybe are not typically taught in your country, in your situation. For example, here in Spain, chopsticks, for example, might be something that wouldn't typically crop up in the classroom. And so you may well need to cover that. Or fan is another one that springs to mind. Or here in Spain, we do have lots of fans, but there are certain words maybe that are not in the course book. But I would say in general terms, if the students are doing Kidsbox 4, then they should be at the level to be doing the movers test. I would always stress, though, that it's really valuable experience to have done some practice tests before the day of the real test, because then they're aware of timing, what's involved, if they're going to have to sort of keep moving through, or are they usually fine for time. Practice makes perfect. Okay, so really doing practice tests from time to time is very useful, I think, both for the teacher and the students.
Okay, thanks. Question now, a very interesting one actually, from Roberto Santos, who asks whether you'd recommend trying these kind of activities with adult students also. Obviously,
Definitely.
we worked a little, I would imagine.
Definitely. I personally am a very visual person, and I know that I remember things, information, data, things about people even, from sort of using my imagination or linking things with pictures, and even with sort of video, even with sort of live situation. And I think that very much believe in trying to appeal to all kinds of learners. And that's not just, doesn't refer to the young learners classroom, definitely in the adult classroom as well.
Okay, thanks. A question now from Elena Anfimova, who asks, to which level of Kidsbox do the flyers exams correspond?
Well, it should be Kidsbox 6, which is pitched at the same level as flyers. That's where you'd be getting the kind of structures, the kind of lexis that will be tested in the flyers test.
Thanks. Question now from Yun Okbrun about listening, and says that students tend to miss out detailed info during the listening, particularly the last part of that. Do you have any suggestions for that, please?
Particularly the last part of the listening, you mean by that, yes?
Yes, yeah.
Yes, I invigilate lots and lots of young learners tests here where I work, because I work for the centre and I run all the young learners tests. So I actually see students doing the listening, and he is absolutely right that very often they're asked, for example, to colour the pocket of the trousers, and you see students taking their crayons and colouring, the trousers in their entirety, rather than just the pocket. So he's absolutely right that missing, getting towards the right answer, but not getting the detail to get the specific right answer. It's something which is tested. I think it's a deliberate thing which is tested. So again, lots of practicing doing these kind of tasks and making students aware that the whole trousers wouldn't be correct because they'd missed the fact that they just had to colour the pocket. There are certain things which tend to come up again and again, things like pockets or parts of things, or if there are two things in a picture and one is bigger and one is smaller, then very often again identifying which one is needed is very important. But I think, again, I think it's a very important real life skill that if you're following instructions to build something or to fix something or to connect something, you have to follow the instructions to the letter. You can't miss out a part or get the wrong information, because that could have devastating consequences, basically.
Okay, thank you very much, Anne. I'm afraid that's all we've got time for today, but don't forget that we'll be back next week on October the 13th, when we're joined by Steph Dimond-Bayer, who'll be exploring the benefits of self and peer assessment and formative assessment as part of a learning-oriented cycle, and she'll also be suggesting some practical classroom techniques to help your learners become more independent. Then on October the 20th, Herbert Puchter's back, showing how to help teens to think beyond language, critical thinking, values and self-esteem. Now those are only 2 of I think 7 or 8 webinars we've got lined up for you this month. You can sign up for all of those by visiting our events page, cambridge.org/ELT events. The webinar will be recorded, or has been recorded as always, and will be live on our blog and on our YouTube channel next week. And we'll send a certificate out to you next week as well. So I'll just post into the chat the URL for our blog. Just a moment. So, thank you very much everyone for attending, and particularly thank you, Anne, for a very interesting session. Really helpful.
That's great. I thoroughly enjoyed my time with you. See you again, I hope.
Brilliant, I hope so. Thank you.